Hello. Here we go.
Hello.
We're back. Feels weird to not have the giant sewing
I
machine
know,
in
it's
front
like
of
there's
us.
too much of me showing. Wait a minute.
That's definitely weird,
Wait
isn't
a
it?
second. That's not right. So, welcome to Wednesday.
It is Wednesday afternoon. We were already live once today.
And that went swimmingly. So,
Yes.
hopefully this will go
Better.
perfect.
Yes. We've been having a little bit of
We'll just call them technical difficulties.
yeah, internet. They've been working on the internet since last week, actually.
Yeah.
So this is week 2 that we've had a little bit of a struggle.
Challenge.
So
Nothing like
hopefully,
a little bit of a challenge.
this afternoon goes better. It looks like we have a signal. And the microphones appear to be working, and we have green checks. So we're going to call that a win for the moment, right?
Yes, absolutely. So,
Scan and cut.
yeah.
It's fun. We thought we'd do something a little bit different and do a couple weeks of different things on the scan and cut and kind of group them together so that we could kind of progressively get more complicated.
Yeah, we'll go with that. That sounds about right.
We like to, complicated is so much fun.
So much. So today we're going to kind of do a basics and show you what the mats are, how to clean the mat, what the blades are, which blade to use where, and some simple cutting. We're not going to do anything crazy, just some, basic shapes or something, and how to cut the different things.
Yeah. So if you're new to
try
a
to
scan
take
and
that
cut,
guesswork out.
yeah, this is perfect. And if you're not sure if you want a scan and cut, this is also a really good opportunity.
Maybe see some of the things that you can do. And
maybe you already have like a crate or a silhouette and you're wondering, oh, geez Louise. So can you just touch the camera over there? It keeps going
to sleep.
I'm
not doing it.
Oh, good grief. All right. So if you already have one of those cutting machines, there we go. Apparently it doesn't want to stay awake for a long time.
We don't use that one that often,
No.
and evidently we need to reset one of the
Not
settings.
happy with me. So if you already have one of those other cutting machines, you can maybe see what's different or what's the same, or determine whether or not you need to add this to your arsenal of goodies.
Yeah.
The particular model that we're sitting on right now.
I'm like, is that going to fall over?
Maybe. Is the Disney Scan and Cut DX 330.
330.
Which is the top of the line in scan and cuts. But honestly,
from a cutting perspective, you don't really get a difference in the cut.
Right.
It's just what's installed in it and what comes in the box.
Right. Because they really, all of the DX models, so even the 225 and the 230 that we had before, mechanically wise, they cut the same things, right? It's just there's a new special feature that allows these to directly connect with some of our brother sewing machines that we couldn't do on the other one. But scanning wise and cutting wise, all of our DX models are pretty similar in that.
Yes, that is very accurate. Yes.
What makes the dealer model different than the online model that is a little bit less expensive?
So first of all, the screen, which is the other camera, but the actual size of this screen is going to be smaller on an internet model.
Yes.
So harder to see and work at the machine. So one of the really, in my opinion, benefits of this is you don't have to use a computer to use this machine. You can just either use one of the built-ins or plug in a USB and do what you need.
Yes.
It's right there. You don't have to go out of your computer, figure out what you're going to do, bring it up on the screen, wirelessly send it, or anything. You do not need a computer to make this work. That being said, if your screen's smaller, it makes it a little bit harder to do those things right at. Not that you can't do it. It's just a smaller version of what's on the screen.
Right.
The other thing that you will definitely see, and it is stated on the boxes in the listing of things, the models that we carry are able to scan in both 12 by 12 and in 12 by 24 format. the online models are only going to do a 12 by 12 scan.
Yes.
So if you're looking to do a larger pattern of creating, and you've got a drawing or something like that,
You only have
you
half
only
the
have
size.
a 12-inch range, actually 11 and three quarters,
Yeah.
range of scanning on those. Definitely going to be less in the box. So these both come with 2 mats and 2 blades.
Those come with like one
Those
mat
come
and-
with the standard mat and the standard blade.
Yeah.
So
You get a few more things.
basically anything extra you have to buy. It does not come with, you can cut right out of the box on those. You know, you can open it,
Yep.
plug something in and cut. You don't have to go buy other things, but there's no extras.
Extra
You get a
extras.
standard blade and a standard mat.
Yes.
And there
Do
you go.
they all read PES files?
I don't know that they do.
I think it's just the dealer models.
That might be.
Yeah.
I don't use those other ones enough to, that's one I'm not 100% sure of.
So they may not. Some
It might not be able to just magically take your applique file out of your
PES file.
Your PES file
Yes.
that it needs to cut. So yeah, I think that might be maybe on some, but not on all. For sure, not on all. I'm not sure if it's on any non-dealer model or not.
But you can on all dealer models.
Yes, absolutely, quite easily.
So
as a matter of fact.
225, 230, 325,
325,
330.
So you have a 225 or you have a 230. Why would you even consider buying another scan and cut? Because what I have works great.
Right.
Why would you want that? Well,
Right. If you have Luminaire 1, 2, or 3, or if you have the Stellar series,
XJ or XE 1 or 2.
1 or 2, yes.
There's a huge benefit.
Yes.
So both of us had a 200 series scan and cut, and we decided to purchase the 300 series, giving us 2 scan and cuts
Yes.
at home and 2 dealer model scan and cuts at home, because it actually upgrades your capabilities not only here in the scan and cut, but in a huge way on the
your
embroidery machine itself.
Yep.
So we purchased it more like I was buying an upgrade for my Luminaire than I needed another scan and cut. I didn't need another. I mean, I
Right.
use them both, but
Right.
I didn't need
Another
to.
scan and cut, yeah.
But I bought it as I want to upgrade my Luminaire.
Right.
And so it literally adds features to the Luminaire.
Yeah, we get
or
an
the XJ or
auto applique button that we don't have when they're not connected. We've talked about that before, and we'll talk about it again.
Yep.
But that's so if you have one of these 4 models that we just talked about, the 225, the 230, the 330, or the 325, everything we talk about today is going to be applicable. A lot of this stuff will be applicable on other models of the machines, especially if it's a DX, but there'll be some things that are a little bit different depending on how old or whether it's a dealer model or of our version model.
Yep.
So Joan said she did too. She gave her 225 to her daughter.
My daughter currently has my 225, but it wasn't like a permanent give. It was just a here, make your wedding stuff.
In theory, it's not permanent.
I mean, if I never get it back, it's not the end of the world. But
Right.
she's very clutter.
You own a lot of them now.
I'm more than I did a couple of days ago. But yeah, so we did it.
Yeah, so we get it.
So we totally get, why you might want to do that.
Yep.
And of course, we're more than happy to help you out and answer questions more specifically if you would like.
Yes.
So let's get into it.
All right, so let's make the other screen bigger and make us smaller.
It sounds great. I'd love to make me smaller.
Right.
Can you actually do that just by...
Totally. Ready? We're smaller.
Oh, look, I lost a whole bunch of pounds. Yay. Okay.
We're like little people now. Like the little...
lollipop. Sorry.
I was talking about like the little people that we played with.
Oh.
Yeah.
Polly Pocket,
Polly
she
Pockets,
says.
yeah.
Okay. So this is that screen that we were talking about. And when you turn it on, just like our embroidery machines, we have to tell it to come
Wake
on.
up.
It will reset the blade position so that it always knows exactly where the position of your mat
Yes.
and your cut file are.
And this screen thing has been coming up a lot lately.
It is. It's weird. We go in phases where nobody asks that question, and then every new machine we sell, they call and say, "My machine won't come on."
Right.
So,
And you don't wake up your machine, your scan and cut, your sewing machine,
Yep.
your brother,
so here,
whatever.
let's-
Then you definitely aren't going to do anything. You can't send a design to the machine until it's
No.
woken up. You can't do anything. You really have to just tap that screen while it's on its screensaver mode and say, so it says hello.
So I can't use my machine.
No.
So this is the phone call we get. We're like, okay, I turned it on.
Yeah. I can't, I
None
touch
of
the
the,
buttons
my buttons aren't working. What am I supposed to do? So this is like a screensaver. It'll change. On same thing on your embroidery machines. It will flow through different things. All you have to do is tap the screen. You have to push. You
Yes.
can't just barely touch it.
Yeah.
But you have to push, and then it'll ask you to hit OK on either embroidery, sewing, all of those good things. And then you get to your home page.
Yes.
So these machines are wireless. So you'll see the wireless symbol here. If it's blue, that means you are connected. So yay.
Yay.
We're connected at the moment. Let's hope it stays there. And then you have your main set of built-ins. You have your scanning features. And then there are additional features if you scroll through. So you're probably not going to use those other pages often, but they are there. The roll feeder, you're going to want to say, hey, I'm using the roll feeder. It will walk you through how to attach it if you are doing that. And then, okay, now I'm ready to cut. And it tells you how to load all of your stuff.
Yeah.
Everything literally step by step. So super easy to do that. And again, you're just going to page over. If you are doing embossing, you want to tell your machine you're doing that because there's a little bit different steps that you follow to do that. The My Collection is kind of cool. You can actually purchase collections of designs, put the entire collection on your USB, and then you can view it there. So you can see all of the designs and flow through from there. And then the My Connection is connecting to our embroidery machines that we talked about.
Yes.
That would literally upgrade your embroidery machine as well as the features in here. So that's that My Connection. So those are the different pages that we have that we can play with. Very rarely do I leave this page outside of, pushing one of these buttons, but I don't go to the other pages too often. So this little guy here is where we're going to pull up any of our saved data, whether we've saved it to the machine, whether we've saved it to a USB that we're pulling off of over on the side here, or whether we are pulling something in wirelessly. This is, again, a button I've personally never used. I've certainly talked to other people through that. This is connecting directly to your computer because you don't have a USB. That's that cord that you would connect direct.
Yeah.
So that's what that one is there. Test. I never pushed that button on this machine.
No, I can't remember a time we've ever done it.
When I first got the store opened at 2:30. I didn't believe the hype. Not gonna lie, didn't believe it. I was like, there's no way it's gonna work perfect without me having to do something.
Right.
Yeah, it does.
I remember that. You were like, I have one and it's
I'm
fine.
like, I have a CM650, which at its time was the top. I'm like, I understand how to work it. I don't need a new one. It can't be that perfect.
Right.
She
wasn't convinced.
I used it once.
And she went home with one.
I went home with the 225 that same day. I was like, oh, no, I definitely need this. This
Wasn't
needs
a lot
to be in my life.
Yeah, it was funny. She was like, I was wrong. It's got to come home with me.
Yep, I'm wrong. It's going home. It's mine today. So that you can still use it. Why would I use that? If you have very limited supplies, like a special piece of fabric, or I only have one piece of this left, I can't screw it up. And not because the machine's not going to do its job, but if as your mats get older and your blades get older, things start to get a little
less perfect unless you're making accommodations for that. So if you only have one piece and you want to make sure you get that perfect cut and you're not sure about the quality of your blade, then a test cut might be in order. Right.
Outside of that, I'll show you why I don't do that. When we get in there, I check before I pull things off. In which case I can just recut if I needed to. So I don't ever use that button personally, but there you go.
It's there. It's nice. It's like a security blanket.
It is a nice security blanket. There is still a test feature built into the final page right before you cut to. So if you don't do it there and you decide, oh, I probably should check that, you can do that later on.
There was a wrench on that screen too.
There was. I don't generally use the wrench there because every page
has its own wrench.
Own wrench. And the nice thing about those is where here I have
tons of pages,
all
right?
the pages. If I am on a page, it will only give me the settings that I need for the whatever's happening on that page. So if I'm on the cut screen, I get all my blade information. If I am on the editing screen, I get
Yep.
1/4 inch and
But if you were
miscellaneous.
turning this on for the first time, this is where we
This
would
is
need
where
to
you would
go
go to get
to
your
our Wi-Fi,
wireless.
right? Yep, okay.
Yes. Or you can tap the wireless and it will
And it
take
will
you
take
right
you
there.
right there. Yes.
Yep. Either one. But yes, so you can access that. It's a little bit closer to the bottom. Oops, I already passed it. So there's that network there. And then the machine registration. This is literally brand new. We just opened it. I think it's had one cut on it, maybe. But the we haven't linked it to our Canvas workspace. So if you had registered that, it would show your Canvas workspace registration there.
Is there an Artspira registration on this page too? Or is that someplace
It
else?
might be in there too. Then that same registration thing.
Like the machine registration?
Yeah, I
It's
think that would
probably
have
all
both.
does,
And then there's the Artspira
yeah,
app link
that's the
right
little
there.
app link there.
Yep.
So, okay.
So Artspira is great. If you are not familiar, it is a free app. You can upgrade and pay to get additional features in it, but it is a free app that you can use to transfer designs wirelessly and create designs right in the app, which is awesome. And those designs are available for cutting, embroidery, or even printing in that free app, which is really, really cool.
Okay.
All right, so blades. We have, I got it. I can.
Can you do it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have 4 blades. This particular machine comes with these 2. These are color coded, so you can see very easily which one is which. So you don't ever have to know which one was that. All you have to do is know which color means what.
Yeah.
But these 2 are what comes in the 330. And these 2 are what comes in the 325. So let's talk about the blades a little bit. This little guy here is your standard blade. It's kind of like your
J foot on your sewing machine.
Your J foot on your machine, or maybe your needle.
A universal needle.
That's the word. I'm like, what the heck is that word? Holy crow. Woo, it has been a long day. I know you wrote that a long time ago, Joan, but it's perfect for the moment. So this is going to be kind of like that universal. Wonderful for lots of things, but maybe
not
perfect for not very many.
Yes.
But this is going to be that can do almost anything with up to a point.
Right.
So that is your standard blade. This is the rotary blade. So this is really nice. And I have found that this is becoming more and more like my go-to, depending upon what I'm cutting. But if I'm having anything to do with fabric, most of my fabric has a backing on it because I don't do many things that are just fabric. So this tends to be my go-to for that. I like this better than this for that. So
you do get a cleaner cut because it's just like a regular rotary cutter. It rolls across.
Just rolls across instead of dragging like a utility blade dragging across your fabric, which is kind of like what these little blades are. But this is a miniature. Let's go right here. I don't know. Can you see that?
Yeah.
It is literally this tiny little rotary blade, and it rolls all over the mat. If it needs to change a direction that it can't turn that tight, it lifts, it goes off the mat, it angles to the new angle that it needs, and then it comes back.
Yeah.
So
your cuts can take
your cuts sometimes can take a little longer because of that, but again, you get a really great cut, and you don't get the. It's not shredding per se as much as like an accordion thing happening sometimes on those little edges.
Yeah.
Because there's no drag.
Right.
So it works really, really well. That is the rotary blade. So those are the 2 that come with this machine here. The other 2 blades that I have here, this one is the fabric blade. This is a very fine, thin blade, and it works really well to be used on your fabric mat with fabric, no backing, can have starch or whatever, but nothing else.
Yeah.
This is the go-to for that.
Yeah.
If you do have a backing on there, you still can use this, but you're not going to use your fabric mat, and I would switch to the rotary blade personally.
Yeah.
But that is your fabric blade, and I will show you how to use that today.
Yeah.
And then this one is not included in any machine, but it's one of my favorite blades because I cut vinyl all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the vinyl blade. So it is light blue, and it has, again, a really fine tip. So it's a smaller blade than your standard, and it allows for really tiny circles and cute little points and, you know, mouse tails on Mickey Mouse, or,
Mm-hmm.
you know, little things that are very small and intricate.
Yep, allows you to
This
do a lot
it
of
gives you
detail.
that detail option, absolutely. And then we have our mats. So mats are also all
Yeah.
color coded.
Have seen better days, haven't they?
Our mats have been loved, yes. They are definitely loved. So the nice thing about them is they are color coded, and they do have the name, which I know you can't quite read that there, but that says fabric mat. And that tan color, which I know is really crazy, it matches the tan fabric blade.
Right.
So color coding.
Mm-hmm. And this little protective coating here, it's funny because just the last couple of days, I've seen people not storing their mats with this
that on there?
them, and they pull them out and they've got all kinds of weird things stuck to it, and they're like, why did that
What the
happen? And
heck?
I'm like, it's
So
sticky,
there
people.
is a
Sticky.
cover that comes with every one. Now this is the stickiest mat that we have, and the plastic does obviously come off, but I'm having to really pull
Right.
to get that off. Because of that, imagine all of the dust and the paper and the
Right.
thread
Do
and
not
whatever
put
that would
paper on that
stick. Do not put anything on this mat except for fabric by itself.
Yeah.
So if you must put a fabric on it that has backing,
You want to do it upside
you're
down.
going to want to put it fabric side down. If you put this paper on this mat, it's not coming off. Jeez, Pete.
Let me see if I can find a different
Setting in there.
Yeah.
So that is the fabric mat. Again, the stickiest that we have. This was released a few years ago, and it is a absolutely wonderful thing. Here, let me switch. This one? Yes.
Yep.
So this here is the low tack. All right, and you can see that it has like this turquoise band there. That is the low tack mat. That is the least amount of tack that we have on. This is the mat that I'm going to use for paper in general. If I have a standard mat that's really well loved and it's not super duper sticky, I will put paper on a standard mat as well. And speaking of the standard mat, that is this one with the purple band at the bottom. There is a matching purple arrow at the top, as there is a matching arrow for each of them. This one is going to be kind of your go-to for most things, hence the standard name. The other mat that we do have, and I'm sure you're all shocked to see a Wonder Woman logo in there, this is the scanning mat. So this is something that has no adhesive, so there's no tack here at all. And this is something that you can tap and place in your pattern pieces or whatever it is that you are trying to scan. The reasons that you would want this, if you are going to scan and create a lot of files in the machine, I highly recommend that you get this. If you're going to do, you know, maybe 1 to a year, not worth the purchase. Just use your regular mat and get rid of the excess stuff that's in there.
I touched a bunch of buttons. I don't know if I touched the right buttons.
Buttons
but
are
we'll
fun
try.
to push though, right? So this has a film that goes over the top, and it protects that from getting caught in the scanner, and you get a really clean scan. So it gives you a little bit better image in general
Yes.
than using the mat. When you use your standard or regular cutting mat to scan, you have all of these dots, and then you can see from the light, let me see if I can turn it just right. There we go. See all of those cut lines? Every one of those lines shows up in the scan. That's how good your scanner is. It is a top of the line scanner that's built into this machine. So all of these machines, and they work phenomenally well. So if you have a lot of stuff on there, you're going to have to then maneuver your way around getting that off.
And those lines are completely normal because
Absolutely normal. Good point.
if the blade doesn't go through and sort of score the mat, it's not actually
It's not
cutting
going
through.
through your product that's on the mat. So
Right.
there's no way for it to get a clean cut if it doesn't go into the mat.
Right.
You should not be cutting all the way through your mat.
Right.
But you should absolutely be able to see a score line of your design when you take your product
Right.
off.
Kind of like your cutting board at home.
Absolutely.
When you cut, right?
You know where you cut.
Yeah, it has to hit that.
Yep,
in
we
order
get
to
that.
cut through
I don't
a
have
lot.
Wi-Fi here. Do you know where we're at there? It disappeared.
It did.
Okay, so those are the mats and the blades. I don't see any questions popping up, so I assume nobody has any. And where do you store all of this stuff? So you do have this. This is something that they added in the DX. So we used to have this really, it was a nice cover. It covered your machine, but you couldn't actually use it. It had a curve to it.
Right.
This is great. I absolutely love what they did with the door of the machine. So you have the ability to put your blades and things in here, as well as whatever else.
I want it to be just a little bit bigger.
I know, I wish it was just a hair longer. But I'm a patter. So as my machine is moving the mat in and out, I'm always smoothing out whatever I've got on my mat. So I'm constantly doing that.
Kind of like on your sewing machine.
Kind of like
when
that.
you're embroidering.
Yes, exactly. But this gives you a flat surface. So you have an actual working space, which is really nice. Because, you know, the mat moves around a lot. So sometimes things like to pop up a little bit in the middle, those kinds of things. So I do definitely like to do that. And I love that I'm able to do it on this machine and push a little bit.
We didn't have that on the other one. It was like
it was concave. It had a dip in it.
Yeah.
So it curved with the body of the machine, which is great, except you couldn't use it.
Yeah,
so it was just awkward. You try and then your mat it didn't work. So this was a great change. So what do we want to start with? Should we do just the plain fabric?
Sure.
All right, so I am going to start with plain fabric. I'm going to put the fabric blade in. So how do I apply these? Over here, there's this little flippy-do guy. All right, I'm going to set the blade in with the flat part to the back and make sure it's all the way inserted, and then I push down on that little lever, and now my blade is stuck in there. It's not going anywhere. So each of the blades actually do have I don't know if you can see the black, there we go. They have a different groove system on the back. So the machine does know which blade you have in there when you apply it inside of the carrier. So fabric by itself, which mat should we use, people?
I'm going to take a guess that we're going to use one that matches the color of the blade, and it's going to be gold.
It's going to be gold.
Did I win the prize?
You win. Ding, 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 ding.
All right. What do I get?
You get to slap that on here.
Fabric.
You get to slap that on there. Now, depending on what you're cutting, you want to be careful and try to get it straight or whatever. But if you just are cutting out of a scrap or something like that, no big deal. You can literally put it anywhere you want.
Yes.
Any direction you want. All of those things. Up, down. It doesn't have to be in the top left. As a matter of fact, I don't recommend.
Yeah, people tend to just go up to the top left all the time.
So let's pop back to the screen for a second, and we'll pull up just a basic piece. I do want to get a curve in there, so I'm going to choose maybe, what do you think, a heart? We'll have a point.
Yeah.
Can I find a heart? Do I have a heart? No heart on me. All right. So on this particular piece, I'm going to need to shrink it, but we'll show you how to do that too. But notice that the design popped into that upper left-hand corner.
So that means I have to leave it there, right?
You absolutely have to leave it there unless you're going to add another design. No, please don't just leave it there. The reason why is if you always cut in that same spot, that mat is going to die in that spot. So you want to move the piece around so that you have different cut files going in different places. You don't want to build grooves into the mat because then you could have some cutting issues in the future. So my piece of fabric is 3 inches tall, and my heart is 1, 2, 3, 4 inches tall. That ain't gonna work. So
we're only gonna have a part of a heart.
See, told you, mine will be broken. But generally, you would apply your piece of material or fabric or paper or whatever it is to the size that you need for the file. You wouldn't generally be shrinking the file to fit your fabric. It doesn't generally, but we're going to do that today anyways. So I'm going to hit the word edit, and I'm going to hit the word object edit. And that will get me into all of the different things that I can change.
Some new hieroglyphics.
Absolutely, new hieroglyphics, exactly. This top left one here, so we have 9 on the top, which are going to be things that you would use most frequently. You'll notice these down here are grayed out. They are grayed out because I only have 1 item on the screen, and those are for grouping or combining.
Can't use them yet.
You cannot use them as of the moment. If I add another design, and I know I didn't tell you how to do that, but I could group them. Let's do that. I could group those two, and I know I'm not explaining, so just bear with me. But notice now what I have access to has changed. And so
Right.
it's going to depend on what you have on your screen, what you have the ability to play with.
Kind of like on our sewing machine.
Imagine that.
Right.
All right. So down here, I can group them and make them one design. I can actually weld them together. So if I am zoomed in, you guys can see a little bit better now.
So welding them makes them one design.
One design. So right now
versus
I have
two.
a cut line that's going through this heart and into that heart. And I don't want that because then I'd end up with a bunch of little pieces.
Yep.
It would literally cut one and then cut the other. So I would get a hole in the middle of that one if this were an actual design that I was doing. So what I can do is have both of them selected and I could weld them together. So it's going to ask me, hey, are you sure you want to do this? Because once you take that section out, I can't put it back.
No, undo didn't work.
Undo does not, well, there isn't really an undo on this one. So if you can see that now, it literally has an opening there. There's no interior lines. So it welds the two together and just gives me the exterior lines. So you have the ability to weld on here. I don't actually want to weld. So I'm going to get rid of one of those. Okay, so in my object edit, I have the ability to size, copy, rotate. I have add a seam allowance. I have mirror image, which is going to look a lot different on this particular model if I change. No, it won't look at all different because it's exactly the same. And I also have the ability to fill. Now, why would I want to fill? If I'm drawing. That's really the only time you're going to care to fill. All right. This one here is going to be adding additional lines, which only makes sense if you do that. So I'm just going to do it. And what did I tell it to do? Oh, it's going to draw right on top of itself, basically, because of where it's at. So that's what I've got there. And I didn't really need to do that. We're going to undo that too, because I don't really.
So that would like cut two times in that space?
Here we go. We're going to turn it on. That helps.
Okay.
But yes, so let me see if I don't have zoom on this page. Should have made it farther apart. But you can actually tell it's heavier. You can see the line more clear. It's going to go over it twice.
Yep. So that would be like 2 passes of the cut.
Exactly. The other option that you do have in there is you can space that out so that it's a ring around it. So if you want a frame,
convenient, yes.
or if I want a heart that is just the outline, I can have 2 cut lines.
Right.
I would still get the interior heart, but I'd have a ring that I could use to frame or on something or applique over something or something like that. So lots of power in the additional lines. I'm going to turn that back off because I don't really need that right now. And then this guy here is going to offset how far out an additional line might be as well. So you've got an offset option there. This one here, I don't know if I've ever actually used it, but I've thought about using it many times. And this one will draw dotted lines instead of cut lines. So you'll get kind of like it is cut, but it's not a solid line. So it would
almost
be like a
scoring.
fold line. It would like score it, but it doesn't, it would still go everywhere, but only in like a dotted fashion. So it gives you the ability for a fold line or something like that if you're making envelopes and or cards.
Crease, yeah.
It gives you that crease where it's going to fold nicely on that spot.
Cool.
So that's what this guy does here. And again, dotted line and where you want that spacing as the options in there. So you're probably still not going to even use this line very much. It's going to be these top 2 lines that you're going to use most of the time. Again, we can resize. So like I said, the piece of fabric that I have here is 3 inches. So I'm going to make this just a little bit smaller than 3 inches. And I'm going to leave that alone. Now, if I wanted to make it a fatter heart, but not taller, I can do that. But right now, if you notice, if I hit one height or width, both numbers will go up.
Or proportion.
And it's equally proportioned. If I want to change that, I have to hit this button. It will highlight. And now I can make that just a little bit wider than it is tall.
Cool.
Okay, so that is how the sizing works. We already briefly, very quickly, flew past this one. If I want more than one heart, I can multiply them out and then put them wherever I would like on the mat. That is this guy here. This one here is rotating. So it's exactly what it sounds like. We just rotate it and there you go. You're ready to go. If you are trying to fit more things into a mat, then what would easily fit side by side, you can rotate nook and cranny and whatnot to save on things. Now, if you're cutting fabric, you need to be careful that you're not getting pattern issues or grain issues,
right?
Depending upon, but paper, vinyls, all of those, doesn't matter what angle you cut at,
right?
It's all going to work out really well. So 90, 10, or 1 degree. So that is that one here. We said what this is, but what is it actually? This machine actually will mathematically figure out for you a seam allowance, and you can tell it how big of a seam allowance. So the default here is 1/4 inch. So for all of you quilters out there, if you were trying to make half square triangles and you need your finished triangle to be 3-inch triangle, you can program that 3-inch triangle and then come in here and turn on the seam allowance, and it adds it to the outside of your finished inappropriately.
Perfect.
In the appropriate way, not inappropriately.
I knew what you meant.
Okay, I wasn't sure if that actually sounded. I'm like, that didn't sound like what it was supposed to sound like.
Yeah, it's wrong.
It's not. It's not inappropriate at all. It's very appropriate. But what that will do in a triangle, so on a point, it actually gives you
like the cut, it cuts your dog ears off.
Yes, it takes that dog ear issue out of the way too, which is awesome. It does a beautiful, beautiful job.
Why don't we do a triangle and turn that on that piece next to our heart?
Sure, we can do that. All right, so let's come back over here. 2 seconds, we'll go do that.
Okay.
I said that this would mirror image. Again, you're not going to see anything different here, but it will highlight that it's on, which is important to know. So what that is going to literally take my design and flip it so that the right side becomes the left and the left becomes the right. Why do I need that? Well, if you are doing vinyl and you heat transfer vinyl, you 100% of the time need to have that on.
Yep.
Especially if you're doing letters or things like that, because otherwise your design will be backwards.
Or if you're cutting letters and you're cutting upside down.
If you're cutting upside down, like we talked about, we put our fabric side down on a mat, you need to mirror image as well.
Especially if it's not a symmetrical design. So even if it wasn't a heart or it wasn't letters, if the design itself was not symmetrical, you would
absolutely need that.
Make sure you did that.
So sometimes you can get away with it and it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Like, oops, I forgot. Luckily, I made a football and it's exactly the same everywhere.
Right.
Then it doesn't matter. But it's very rare that we actually have truly symmetrical designs that we're doing that kind of thing with.
Yeah.
So that is the mirror image. And again, you can turn it back off by just touching that. The fill here, you would want to turn that on. It will completely fill it in unless you go into the patterns, and then there's a couple patterns in there. I really wish they would add other patterns in there because these are super boring. Not excited about these
someday.
At all. I really wish they would have a scroll or something like that to draw inside of things. I think that would be a phenomenal addition to this. But
and you wouldn't want to turn that on if you're cutting.
No.
That's strictly for using.
It's just for drawing purposes. Yes. All right. So that is that top section, which are the ones that you're going to use. I mentioned that your wrench would only give you a little section. All that we can adjust on this page is the size of our mat and what kind of background we want.
Okay.
So if you are obviously not in a position to change things because it doesn't apply to what's on screen.
Right.
So it's only giving you the applicable settings to whatever it is that you're doing. When we're going into the seam allowance and things, that's actually going into the settings. It takes you directly to the page that you need to do that.
Cool.
So that's really cool. So Sarah wants to add a triangle, which I think is a great idea. But here we go. How do I do that? So from here, we're going to hit add.
Add.
I know it's crazy. I wanted to add a triangle, so I hit
add.
Now I need to find the triangle.
Pattern.
So I'm going to go back to the pattern. What's the other one do? If I needed to pull off my USB, I could do that here or from my machine memory.
Right.
That's going to take me there. So this is going to take me to the pattern page. I go back in here and I need to page down a couple pages to our triangle. So we've got a couple different ones here. Here's that elusive one that we're always talking about, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and size this down to 2 inches because I can. All right. I could do this later or I could do it now. It doesn't really matter. So when I hit set now, it's going to automatically add that 2-inch triangle on my page. So I'm going to go into edit. I'm going to go into object edit, and I'm going to go into that seam allowance. Now, if I have this one highlighted in red, you can kind of see that red box. That's what I'm editing. If I have this one highlighted in red, that's what I'm playing with.
Right.
So I want to make sure I have the right design. I'm going to turn that on. I can toggle through these to see what my options are. So if I'm making a sewing pattern for whatever, I could put a 5/8 inch seam allowance and it would automatically add that. So you can change that. I'm sorry?
It's so
big. I know, right? What would you ever do with all of that? Keep your pants on is what you would do with that. All right, so 1/4 inch is the default because that's what most people that are doing this are adding a quilting seam allowance. So when I hit OK, it automatically adds that. So I'm going to come back out of this page and zoom in on that so that you can see. Can you see that yet? Let's go a little bit higher. And this one.
There you go.
So I actually have my inner triangle and I have the outer. So I don't know if you can tell that, but we'll show you when it actually is cut. It has blunted those tips so that I don't have those little flappy dog ears in my way, and I don't get a yucky corner either.
Right. You know where to line them up.
I know exactly where to line them up together. You got it. So what it will not do is cut the inner triangle anymore.
Correct.
It's still showing it to you so you can see that your seam allowance has been activated.
Right.
But it will not cut on that inner. It's just there for visual.
Right. We don't
It'll
want it to.
disappear later on.
We want it to be smart.
Smart is good. I like smart. It works really, really well for me. So I have these two.
Otherwise, it's a peekaboo.
Right. I have these two files here. This is still a touch screen, so I have the ability to play a little bit. All right. But what I wanted to point out, I now have 2 items on the screen. So let's show you how to group your items. Now, why would you want to group your items?
So I can move them all at the same time?
You can move them all at your same time. You can edit them together. So one of the things that I want to do in a class is show about how do you create a design and yada, yada, yada. So we're going to have that. We're talking about classes today. When you scan in and create something, unless there's only one line on there, you're going to get an interior line. You're going to get maybe the little doodle inside something. You're going to get multiple lines. Well, they come across as all separate lines. It doesn't group it automatically when you create that. So if I wanted to move it,
you'd have to move
I would
each
only
individual
have
part.
one tiny little part. Well, then lining that back up. So even if we're talking a simple A,
right,
getting the triangle in the center that cuts out to make it look like an A instead of
a triangle.
A triangle with a little
Legs.
bottom. Right, exactly. I would have to move that and figure out where it goes.
Right.
By grouping those 2 lines together, it stays in the exact position, and then I can move it around and mirror image it or whatever, because of course mirror imaging would also only do whatever is highlighted.
Right.
So grouping is very important, and it's very easy. So
and just to be clear, though, even though our triangle has 2 things in there, we're not grouping that because
it's truly only one line.
It is, yes. It looks like when you're looking at it, like when you're staring at it, you see 2, but there's really only 1, just to clarify.
Good point. Thank you. So I'm going to touch these 3 red boxes. And I need both of my items to have a red box on that. So I can do 2 things. You can see we've got 2 options here. The one on the left will allow you to select only part of the mat. So maybe I've got 4 designs on there and I need to do whatever it is to 3 of them. I can move my arrows so I'm only selecting a section of the mat and I'm not selecting whatever else is over here.
Which is kind of quicker.
It can be much faster than, anyway. Much easier to go that route, all right? The other option is just give me everything on the screen.
Right.
So if everything is being grouped, just grab that one. That one's super fast.
Right.
You just tap that and it selects everything, whether there be 2 or 100 different files on there, it will select everything on screen. It's kind of crazy when you get 100 and there's these tiny little red boxes everywhere. It looks like a red page.
It's raining red.
It's raining red. You got it. So with both of them selected, I'm going to hit OK. All right. And I have really no tools here left. So I've grouped almost. I've selected is what this is. This is your selection tool. I need to go back into my object edit, and then here's that page that I was telling you about, and we just hit that first one. Yeah, it doesn't like it when you have
A
quilting files in there.
Yeah.
My bad.
I think they get the picture
But
though.
this one, basically, I'd get one red box
Yes.
instead of the two.
Right.
All right. So with those two things there, let's add our mat. So we've talked about all of the basic tools.
Apparently.
It's going to sleep again. Here we go. Dun, da, da, da. I need to load the mat. So I want to bump the edges of my mat on those little ridges there. So there's a home. All right. And I want to tuck it underneath my rollers. I do generally give it just a slight amount of pressure so it's in there, not loose, because I want to make sure it's even on both sides. I don't want one to grab before the other. That's bad because it does grab it and run with it, and then you've got a crinkled yuck mess. So we don't want that. I generally apply a little bit of pressure, and I'm holding just the center and I'm pushing a little bit in. You can see I'm pushing. I'm not going to push that much, but I wanted you to see where it was going. All right, so I'm just giving a little bit of pressure, and then up on the screen there is a button on the right. You've got a house, you've got a square with squares in it right here, and then you've got your pause button. I'm going to push this one here, and my mat loads in. It does go slow at first. Nothing's wrong with your machine when that happens. That's what it's supposed to do. Now here's the thing. I've got a piece here, and I want to make sure that my files are going to actually go on top of my fabric. So how do I do that? I need to go back another screen. So if what you have on your screen is okay, you hit okay and it will go back. So this is the screen that I need to be at. So I don't want to hit okay. Don't do that yet. I need this little guy right here. And what that's going to do is take a picture of my mat and put it on my screen. So I'm going to just tap that, and it's going to say, hey, it's going to scan the mat and show it as a background image. It's not creating any cut files. It's not creating anything other than an image.
Okay.
That's all it's doing. So I push start, and it's going to feed, and it's going to look at my entire mat. If you have a 24-inch mat, then make sure you have room for a 24-inch mat to go out the back. We're a little crushed here, so I just wanted to make sure it wasn't going to jam up back there. And so now I can see the image on my screen. Look at that. Super easy to see that, don't you think? Yeah. All right, so how can I see my black cut line on my black fabric?
We can lighten up our background image.
We can. So we're going to go into the settings.
It's like a test for me, guys.
I know, I'm see, she's learning too. So here is my background. So again, I'm only getting the settings that I can do something with relative to what's on my screen right now. So here's my background. And right now we are on dark. We can turn that picture off. So if you're like, okay, I'm done, I don't want to see it anymore, it's annoying me, I can turn that off. Or I can come here. So I told you this was brand new. This is the default. If this were something I'd been cutting on, that wouldn't be there because my default is here. So what this does is it fades it out so you can still see everything, but you can see the lines on top of it as well. So just so that you guys can see a little better, I'm going to zoom back in, and still not sure you can see super well, but the red box, there's black lines inside of that.
I think they can see the red box. Probably can't see anything
Probably
else.
can't see the other ones, but I can still see my cut lines even on black fabric because it's literally just muted everything. So I can see where they're at, and I can then use either my finger and adjust to make sure that I am inside of my fabric. I can come over here and look at my heart and do the same, and making sure that I am again on the fabric so that I wasn't, let's see if I'm still grouped. Look at that. So you can see the cut line there. I want to make sure those are on the fabric is what I'm worrying about. That's the goal. So you can zoom in, you can use these little arrows, you can use your finger. So I'm super happy with the placement of all of that. So I'm okay. So I hit okay, and yeah, keep moving through. And so now I'm ready to cut.
All right.
I have my fabric mat, I have fabric, I have my fabric blade in. So let's switch over. Nope, hang on. Sorry. We're going to hit please select. And it says, hey, what do you want me to do now that we're here?
Yes.
Do you want me to draw? Nope, nope,
No.
nope. So we're going to hit cut, which again is what you're going to do most of the time. So up here, I only have one black line now, and that's that outside with the seam allowance.
Right.
And I have my heart. Over here, it says I'm going to cut. And then here are the current settings that we have on the machine. It tells me approximately a minute cut. It's going to be less than a minute, but that's okay. Anything a minute or less will show as a minute. And my pressure is on auto, which means it's going to figure it out on its own.
Yes.
I don't have to do anything. My speed is on 5. My half cut is on.
We want to turn that
I
off.
want to turn that off, exactly. So I am wanting to go all the way through fabric. I only want to do half cut if I have vinyls or something like that. So I'm going to go in my settings. I hit that wrench, and here's all of my cut.
We don't do things halfway here.
No, not ever. Never, never, never. So the default speed is 5. I do generally cut a little slower, just, I don't know why. It's a me thing. It has nothing to do, I have no idea why I do that, but I do that.
Okay.
I don't slow my stitching down, but I do slow my cutting down. I want to make sure that a corner or a point or something is getting cut as clean as possible. And I figure that half second longer is maybe a little better.
Does kind of like
it does, just like when you're sewing.
It will go faster and slower
for you, but I still think that, and we're talking seconds different. So big picture, I don't really see it. So, and again, it's just my mental thing. Me being a mental case, guys, it's all that is. So page 1 is for my standard cuts.
Yes.
All right. If I page down by pushing the arrow, page 2 here, look, there's that fancy word, half cut. Very important that you know which one it is that you're playing with.
Yes.
So I want my half cut off. And then here is my half cut pressure. So why do I actually need that if my machine is auto testing and everything there? Well, because your blade is going to age.
Yes.
And that's really the only thing I really do with that. Occasionally, if I have a fabric that may be a little trickier or something, I might give it an extra oomph just based on the type of fabric, but very, very rare. So why do I change either my half cut pressure or my standard pressures? So I have no idea how old this blade is, so we're going to give it a 1. The auto, which is the default, you can see the black box there. That is going to assume that your blade is sharp, and it's going to work like it was a brand new blade. All right, that is the amount of pressure that's being applied on whatever it's there.
Kind of just like when we're cutting with our regular rotary cutter, right?
Absolutely.
When you first take it out of the package, everything
it's
is
like
beautiful,
butter, right?
right?
It's butter.
And then eventually you're applying more and more
pushing
pressure.
harder to get to do the same thing.
Yes.
So I don't know about you guys, but I'm just as frugal as I think the next. I don't want to pitch my blade the first time it didn't cut quite as good as I was expecting. So instead, if I don't get the cut that I wanted, I bump up my pressure 1 notch. All right. And then it'll be good for another stretch of time.
Yes.
And then the next time that you're like, that didn't do quite what I wanted, I bump it up again and I'll go to 2. My philosophy is past 2, chuck it and get a new one, because you're just pushing your luck on how clean that cut's going to be.
Past 2, it's time for new.
I like it.
Look at that.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. I like it. All right. So again, I'm going to put this on 1 because our fabric blade has seen some love. So we're going to just give it a little extra something. And once I have my settings set, I hit OK and I come back to the main page. Now I can confirm, yep, I turned off my half cut. My speed is down to 3. My pressure is on 1. Still going to be a minute or less. Imagine that.
Yep.
All right. So at this point, I could test if I had that really special something and I wanted to make sure I'm not screwing anything up.
Right.
But I'm not going to do that.
We're going to just...
So I'm going to push the start button. Do it. And then I want Sarah to flip over as soon as I push start.
Okay.
All right. Here we go. Start. Boom. So it's going to feed it in. And your carriage is going to come across the top. It's not always right in the middle. Sometimes it's over here. Sometimes it's over there. Then it goes to where you have... Then it goes to where you have a cut and it tests again. Now it's assuming, I know what happens when you assume, right? It is assuming that we have fabric or paper or something under.
It's going to demo mode.
Oh. Okay.
I don't know where that's at.
We'll don't worry about it. We'll
Okay.
just keep going. So the reason is here is like your baseline. So here is flat with no adhesives and no fabric, no paper, no nothing up there. Here you've got something. So it's assuming that you've got something under your cut line. So if it goes to where the cut line is, there's going to be some materials there.
Yes.
Whatever textile that you have there is going to be different than the next time you have something there, which is why it tests every time. So every time it starts cutting, it's going to come somewhere across the top and it's going to lower and get its baseline. And then it's going to go to where you have material and lower again. And that difference, which is obviously being exaggerated by my hands here because my fabric is not that thick, all right, is going to be where it sets the blade. And that is how you get that perfect cut because it checks every time. So it's already testing. You don't need to do that.
Yes.
Which is why I said I didn't believe it, but it does work.
And that's why your fabric, everything that you're cutting has to be the same depth.
Yes. So I don't want to have
like flannel at the top and regular cotton
right.
at the bottom.
Everything needs to be equal across the board. I don't want to have glitter heat transfer vinyl next to standard heat transfer vinyl because they're different depths and your blade isn't going to recheck every material. It's going to check once.
Yes.
So keep the same everywhere. Now, before I eject my mat and before I just rip off my fabric, I'm going to gently check and make sure that it's cut. So you guys can see that I got a nice clean cut there. All right. Knowing that it's cut, I can then remove it or tear off the rest of my fabric and so on and so forth.
Right.
If that wasn't clean, what should we do? We should
start again.
We should start again. Yes. So
cut again.
You would put it back and then start and cut again. You don't need to make the change for this cut because it's already cut most of the way through.
Right.
Just cut on top of it and then you should be good. But make note to bump it the next time. So as your blades get older, bump it after you've fixed whatever you've got going.
Yep.
Okay. So I'm good here. We're going to get rid of that. So I don't know if you guys can even see that. Look at that. I'm going way back here, right? Look at those corners. That is a beautiful triangle.
It's a beautiful triangle.
I could totally sew that together, right? And be right on the money.
Be right on the
money.
money.
Because my other pieces would also have those same. So
Right.
I would line up those edges and I'm going to get a perfect stitch every time.
Yep.
And that is the 1/4 inch. So you're cutting it, or I'm sorry, you're stitching at that point. So it even shows you where to sew.
Yes.
In reality.
So
it is a wonderful, wonderful thing. And I'm just going to peel off and then you guys can see. So that didn't shift at all. I have nice crisp edges. There are going to be,
off camera.
oh, my bad. Sorry. You're going to get little, I mean, it's fabric.
Yeah.
All right. So that's normal. Nothing wrong with that. If you have something fused on it, it doesn't generally do that.
Right.
So the fuse keeps those fibers from poking out. But this is so easy.
It is. It is. And even if we cut that with our regular rotary cutter, with handling, we're going to get a little bit of that fabric fraying on the edge. That's just what fabric does.
Yep.
So that's totally normal.
Triangle, super, super easy. This was, again, no backing, just slapped on that mat with, I did press it.
Yes.
You don't even have to do that, but I did press.
Yeah.
Because I'm a little OCD when it comes to that kind of stuff. So other fabrics that you could do. This has, you can see the shine. All right. Even with this, I don't want to put this on that fabric mat.
No.
All right. I don't want this part to be on the fabric mat. If I want to use
there forever.
It will stay there. You better believe it. You're going to be coming to buy a new mat. Or stop using that corner of the mat. One or the other. Hopefully you didn't smack it in the middle. But if you have to use or really want to use the fabric mat, instead of putting it down like this, you would simply flip it upside down so that that would be up. This is, I got it.
Oh.
This is heat and bond.
Yes.
Light.
Heat and bond light, yes.
2. I think, as a matter of fact. But that's what this is, and it had the paper peeled off, so there was an additional piece of paper on there. If I'm using this type of, I take the
typically
paper off.
Paper off, yeah.
This, on the other hand, is fabric with a fusible applique on the back. Whether you're using Floriani's Applique Wonder or whether you're using it's called fusible
From
applique.
Baby Lock, yeah.
This is a paper back, which again, you do not want to put on a fabric mat. You would want to use either probably your standard. All right. If it's a brand new standard, you may not want to use. You might want to go to low because they're still pretty sticky when they're new. Now, what you don't want to do, and I've had somebody do this too, is peel this paper off and put that on the mat.
Right.
Guess what didn't happen? It did not come back off because you're putting an adhesive.
Right.
Because this is sticky. All right.
And this one is not.
And this one is not. This doesn't have a stick. It's ironable, as is this one, but big difference. So I have had somebody call and say, I did this. Don't do that. So if it has a sticker, you do not want to put that sticker, and you need to cut it with the paper attached, whether it's upside down or pretty side up. That paper needs to stay on there.
Yeah.
It's enough of a sticker. It will stick inside of the machine. So even if you put it upside down, it's still bad to have that sticker being revealed.
Yes.
So you have to leave the paper on if you're using that kind. So again, both of these I would use the standard mat probably for.
Yeah, standard or low tack
depending upon how sticky your mat is.
Yeah.
But not the fabric mat.
No.
So that is fabric. I don't see any questions popping up. How are we doing?
We're at about an hour. Yep.
So when we are, I'm just going to do a vinyl real quick so that we can see what's happening there. So I am going to throw that on here. I have the standard mat and I have a piece of craft vinyl here. I'm just going to put this there.
There are typically two types of vinyl, heat transfer and craft vinyl.
Yep,
what else what is the other word for
marine or
no pressure sensitive?
Pressure sensitive.
Sometimes craft vinyl is considered pressure sensitive vinyl.
It's basically a sticker.
It's a sticker.
Okay, so there's a waxy back on there. You're going to create a sticker. This is what you would use to make a sign, add something to a mug, something like that.
Yep.
That is what this is. The heat transfer has a backing built into it. I'm sorry, a transfer built into it, and this is going to go that shiny paper transfer side down. So if you were cutting, I'm not going to cut them together, but just FYI, these go color side up. These go pretty side down.
Yep.
All right. And anything heat transfer, you're going to cut in reverse. So let's get rid of, oh, wrong button, this button. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to get rid of this guy, and we're just going to put this right like in the middle of, where are we at? 1, 2, 3. Okay. That is in my, I know I'm counting squares on the grid here versus squares of where I have materials on the mat. So I know that I'm on the mat. This time I'm going to hit cut.
And are we going to change our blade?
Yep. I need to change these settings. Okay. So very important. You want to make sure that you go to page 2, and I'm going to turn my half cut on. I can use either my vinyl blade if I have one, or I can use my standard. The standard works really well for everything unless it's super detailed. Other, if it's just doing an A or a B, simple straight lines, maybe a little bit of curves here and there, it's going to work beautifully. If you are getting, like we were saying, into Mickey Mouse and you're cutting out the eyes and the ears and the little, tiny things, that's when you really want to get into using the vinyl blade.
Now, do you use the weeding box at all?
I do not personally. It works very well. What it will do is automatically add a box to the outside of your design. And so here, let's add it and we'll show you what it does. So basically I have a box on the outside of my vinyl. So I generally just cut around once I've cut it. because all that does is cut through the top, so it still doesn't remove it from
The back, right.
So I'm still getting scissors out at some point. So
Mhm.
I just do it that way. But what this does, and you'll see, is it will give me my heart, and then it gives me a weeding box so that it doesn't pull off
All the rest of
all
your
the rest
vinyl.
of my
Yep.
vinyls off the page. So you can either go that route or cut
Yeah.
cut off the part that you need to weed and then weed it then.
So when we were doing the our holiday thing,
Yeah.
we had a customer ask us, would putting a weeding box around the words work? And I had said no, because we had all of that empty space in the center. So if you put a weeding box around it, it's a box, right? It's not going to be like a circle around it. So you still
Right. You
have,
still have the corners.
so even when it's rounded, the box still goes around. So just like the heart here is rounded at the bottom, the weeding box is a square
it's still a
going
square.
around it. So it can save you on some of your vinyl, but it doesn't, like if you have something arced around it, it really isn't going to help you save all of that
Because it
vinyl
doesn't curve it
in
based
the
on
inside, right?
It doesn't put it like on our embroidery machines. If we hit a like an applique line or something like that, it follows the shape of your design
Exactly.
and it bumps it however far out you tell it. That's not how this does it. It literally just makes a box X amount of space from the edge of your design.
Design, yes.
So I'm going to hit start as soon as I change my blade. So we had the fabric. My vinyl's here, so we're just going to throw the vinyl blade in there.
And Lisa has a really good tip. So when she's done with her project, she takes the blade out so that she remembers to put the correct blade in.
Yeah, I don't ever accidentally cut with the wrong one because I didn't just sit down and hit go.
Right.
I have to put a blade in. So when I'm done cutting, I take all of the blades. There's no blade sitting in my machine.
Yeah, it's
that
really
way I
good.
don't grab the wrong one to show. So I've got the blue top blade in here now. I'm going to hit start up here on my screen. It's again going to come across the top and test. Start it over there. There's no rhyme or reason that I have been able to figure out. And then it's going to go to where my heart is, which is again on my materials. Fingers crossed. I just didn't want to take this time to scan it again. So there was the heart, and now it's going to do that weeding box. So I didn't account for that, but I still think we're good. All right, so I have these pieces here all set, and I can see, I know you guys can't, but I can see where the cut line is. So I could not find my picking tool. It's somewhere in the shop.
Yeah.
But this is a stiletto. It basically is going to do the same thing. When I am weeding, I grab the edge of the part that I'm getting rid of and twist a little bit until I get a lift. All right. Once I have that, I can grab hold of it. Now this is obviously showing it's cutting just fine. So if when you go to pull, you don't get that clean cut, you're going to go back and cut again. Don't remove the mat from your machine, and don't remove the materials from the mat, and it will cut exactly where it cut the last time.
Yeah.
If you take the mat out, you're like, oh, well, I'm not going to move this. I'm just going to check. The problem is when it loads that mat, it could shift slightly to the right or the left or whatever, and it's not going to get, there's no way to get it exactly where it is. But if you don't touch anything, you can check, make sure that you got the cut that you want before you move forward.
Right.
So I absolutely love this machine. It's great. So I'm good here. I could take my scissors and remove that part out, and then use my transfer paper to move the design to whatever area that I am trying to put it on. Now, as a reminder, the heat transfer vinyl does already have that there. So here is my piece. Just gonna get rid of that little guy too. All right. And your transfer paper, thank you, is on, ours has a grid, everybody's doesn't, and it's on another waxy backing piece. Depending upon the size of where you're going, I don't just whip off my transfer paper. I generally start with about 1 inch, and I will fold down the back. And that allows me to place this with much more control than if this was a whole piece of sticker that I was trying to
You
mess
got
with.
that static cling that happens.
I mean, it happens, and it happens in a big, bad, ugly way. So if I am able to line up, say with the top of my cut there, I've got a line here. Then when I take this off, I know that I'm nice and straight. You know, so if you've got letters, you can line up, maybe you need 2 inches or whatever the size of your letter, but you can line up the grid to make sure that where you're sending it to, you can see an easy line. And then this is just going to be really rubbed to remove it. Let's see if I can get the point up. And then it comes off onto here. And then this goes to wherever.
Yep.
I've got a little, no, that was on the other one, I bet.
Yeah.
I had a little sea lion.
Yeah.
Over there. So I love this. I have made more glassware and different things. It's
pretty easy and lots of fun.
It is. And the transfer paper comes on a roll, so you can get it whatever size you need. It is reusable for a little while. Once it starts not being as sticky, or you start picking up fuzzies and things like that, it's not so great. Paper. I would generally use my standard blade 4. All right, I'm not going to actually cut. I just wanted to run through a couple other materials. So I would generally use my standard blade. I was like, where'd it go? It got all blurry for a second.
There we go. Oh.
Yeah, it's
yeah, trying to figure out what it should focus on.
Something to that effect. So standard blade, and generally my standard mat, unless it's again brand new. Brand new, you're going to want to go to the low tack because, again, that tack, you want it to come back off. And paper kind of
fuzzy it up a little.
Yeah, paper kind of separates if it's stuck too much, and you only get the top half of the paper there. And then we do have some other specialized materials. The reason that the rotary blade was actually created was for all of this special stuff. So the thicker items that you can't drag a blade for, they just come right off. So leather, felt,
organza,
so many things.
Yeah.
I actually have a couple pieces over here. So here, switch for me. This is a piece of Kimberbell leather. It's a beautiful star that I didn't have to cut, and I didn't get my scissor marks, you know, where they don't belong in there. That exact same star cut out of Shannon, which is a minky type thing. So again, pain in the butt cutting these. I mean, the fuzz and the yuck. This is so much easier. And these were both cut with the rotary. And then this is a felt flower. So lot of cutting, and it kept going in a circle. So if you've used a scan and cut or any cutting machine before, you know, going in and out, you know, your stuff tends to start to push inside the mat. That rotary blade has zero push. I absolutely adore these. I think they're absolutely beautiful. And all it is a big rotating piece. And then you just roll it up and you have these beautiful flowers.
Yep.
So batting, all kinds of things that rotary blade now lets us cut with ease where we used to fight.
Yes.
So, and the fabric blade and mat were created so that we are cutting fabrics with ease as well.
And then maybe we're a little bit over our hour. Maybe next week we talk about cleaning the machine parts, touching the blade pieces, and then
Changing
cleaning
the
our
blade
mats
and
and
the
all
mat.
of that stuff. So we'll do a little bit more
Maintenance-wise.
maintenance on the machine next week. So, and then if you guys have any questions, you can, of course, email us.
Always.
Or you can save them for next week, and we can probably answer those questions as well.
You bet.
So that was lots of fun.
Yes, I love my scan and cut. It's such a fun tool.
It really isn't. I think the first time that I used it, I felt a little intimidated, in partial because I had struggled so much with my silhouette. And
I remember you saying that.
I used it, but I never really got good, clean cuts, which is ironic because I used to use a commercial plotter all the time. And so that one just cut all the time, you know, cut car decals and window clings and all of that stuff. And there was never an issue. And so, you know, when the silhouettes and stuff came out, I was like, oh, look, we can have our own version. And it was just
Not the same.
it was not the same. And so
Yep.
I think my fear when I got my first Scan and Cut was
it's going to be similar.
right. Am I gonna like is it me, or was it the machine, or did I just completely lose all ability to make this because it just suddenly, it's been too long or whatever. But it really is very easy and not too hard. You just have to get past like the fear of, oh my gosh, and hopefully this video makes it so that you
walks
fear
you through
less.
those basic things that will help you sit down and push the buttons.
Yeah.
That's really the best way to learn is find some scraps that you don't care about. And, with the self-setting blades, there's less of I cut through my mat like 2 days after somebody just bought a machine and they're back 2 days later because they tried and they cut through their mat and they're like, oh, I need a new mat.
Yeah.
So we don't really see that. I'm not saying it's never happened, but we really don't see those
as much.
So it's tons of fun. And with the not having to figure out where to set the blade,
it's so much less work.
It's just so much less stress because it's like, okay, I can't get the right setting. That's not a thing. I mean, it does it for you.
Yeah.
So
just think about what you're putting on and how sticky your mat is.
Yes, please think of that before you push it on the mat.
Exactly. So like, feel the mat. If you can do this
and it's not going anywhere,
don't put paper on it.
No. And I don't know. There's just so much. It's just fun. So have some fun with it. But there is a little common sense to what you're putting on your mat, most definitely. And those are probably the biggest problems that we hear about are, I was doing this and this is what I did and now it's stuck to the mat. Do you have any ideas? And I'm like, going to buy a new mat. Unfortunately, there are a few things, but when you start scraping to get product off, you actually scrape the adhesives that are on the mat off, and then you have a spot that has no adhesive. I have seen that.
Yeah.
I've seen somebody over clean their mat. But there are what are called brayers out there, which is basically like a rolling pin that pushes whatever it is that you're doing into the mat. I am personally not a fan of that. I know a lot of people love them. I use mine all the time. So I know a lot of people love them. I am personally not a fan. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but I don't know where if I'm going to do like push whatever, I generally use my scraper. Not a brayer, and then I have a little bit smaller spaces that I'm controlled in what I'm doing. The reason that I'm a little whatever about them is with paper. Yep, it's flat, great, but I've seen braying push things into the adhesives so much that they don't come off.
They don't come off. That makes sense.
Which is where my concerns come in, is people over bray. Yeah, and then
I don't usually do much with paper.
So, if you're using vinyls come off. So
yeah, vinyl and fabric are usually what I'm doing. And a lot of times it's because they're, they're bowing. So I do use the Scan and Cut tape too.
And we didn't have any in our thing.
No.
So it disappeared. I don't know where it happened.
We'll show it next week.
We'll bring it next week and show you guys that. So thanks for joining. Sorry we went a little over, and I get so excited.
I know, it's fun.
So thanks for hanging out. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And I don't know, is there anything else?
Tell your friends.
Tell your friends.
To come and visit here.
Absolutely. So we are working on class calendars. So we've got stuff scheduled,
to
June, that we've got some things out penciled in and whatnot. So we just need to firm up, and we'll shoot out all of that, and
we'll start loading up the class calendar.
Kick off 24. So we will see you guys next time. Have a great one. Bye.
Bye.